everybody. I hope you're having a great spring weekend. As you know, it's the beginning of the month, so that means it's time for me to do another book review. Now this month I'm doing a book review over one of my all-time favorite books. It's also one of the most influential books of my life. It's a book that was originally introduced to me by a brother in men's ministry over a decade ago now, when I first started working as an ambassador with Promise Keepers. Actually, it was a group of men. It was a resource that was recommended to us by PK leadership for us to read and utilize in ministry to men. And that book is 12 Ordinary Men by John MacArthur. Now this is one of his early books. And I'm sorry for the women who are watching this, you may not be familiar with this book, but it's more circulated amongst Christian men because of the nature of the subject. Now, I know you can't really see the cover of it that well, but I'll take a picture of it and put it in this video. But let me describe it for you. On the cover of this book is Jesus and his disciples on a beach, which I think is appropriate for this time of year. Now I'm going to read to you the subtitle of this book. How the Master Shaped His Disciples for Greatness and What He Wants to Do with You. Doesn't that just make you want to read it, whether you're a man or a woman? But this book, in my opinion, is probably one of the most relevant books for the church today. And a lot of men who have read this have forgotten the basic teaching of this. And I'll go ahead and give you the whole theme of this book in a nutshell. As the title suggests, it's about 12 ordinary men. These were 12 ordinary men that no other rabbi wanted to teach. No other Jewish teacher thought were worthy enough for them to spend time teaching them the Torah and the ways of God. Yet Jesus comes along and he sees these 12 rejects, these 12 nobodies, these 12 subpar students, and says, "Come follow me." Now, a lot of theologians have expounded on the teachings of this book about how Jesus took the rejected students that nobody wanted. These were not the greatest or the brightest Jewish students. These were the ordinary men of their days. In fact, when Jesus called most of them, they were out doing ordinary jobs that was common in the day. I mean, they were fishing. One was even a low tax collector. Of course, Luke is the exception of the rule by being a doctor, trained doctor. But even Luke knew that the call of Jesus was special. The call of Jesus was greater than being a doctor in his day. And that is the message for the 21st century church. While I know the world and a lot of popular, I'm going to say it, Christian, so-called Christian teachers, and even the famed head of Christian politics himself, rant and rave about being great and how he can make them or us great. Jesus did the opposite. Jesus didn't look for the greatest people. Jesus didn't look for the greatest students. Jesus didn't look for the most popular people of his day to teach. Jesus looked for the nobodies. Jesus looked for those who weren't the brightest. Jesus took those who were ordinary, and they humbled themselves by submitting to the teachings of Jesus. And here's the thing. Jesus' teachings really, really ruffled the feathers of other rabbis, and especially the Jewish Pharisees, who were the leaders of the time, because a lot of Jesus' teachings contradicted theirs. And to be blunt, Jesus himself contradicted the idea and the teaching of the very Messiah the Jewish people and the world expected. They were looking for a great, mighty ruler. They were looking for a great earthly politician, just like a lot of Christians today, to save them. But yet God sent the Messiah to the world as a humble carpenter. Even though he was a humble carpenter, he was still smarter than any of the religious leaders of his day. He was still heads above the other Jewish rabbis. And this is the thing, he didn't go around popping his collar saying, hey, look at me, I'm the Messiah. Hey, look at me, I know more than you. Hey, look at me, I'm blessed by my Father. He was humble. I mean, he didn't stay in the best hotels. He didn't eat the best food. He worked for his food. He spent the nights out in the desert with his disciples. Occasionally he would spend the night in a home of one of his followers who had money. But as Peter said, Jesus had no home of his own. And Jesus said to his followers, to those 12 ordinary men, that if he didn't have a place to lay his head at night, they may not have a place to lay their head at night. Now, this book, just like, this book contradicts a lot of the teachings and beliefs of the 21st century church and even Israel today. It's not about us striving for earthly greatness. It's not about us being successful in a worldly sense. It's not about us being the best of the best. It's not about America being the greatest nation on earth. Because let's face it, America has not always been that great a nation. It's all about how Jesus takes, and God takes the least of these, the ordinary people, the humble people, and exalts them, and God makes them great. Jesus took 12 ordinary men and turned the world upside down. Over 2,000 years later, we're still reading those 12 ordinary men's words, and we're still struggling to understand their teachings. Boy, are we struggling to understand their teachings. I mean, if you're looking for your hope and your peace in this fallen world, you bought the lie of Satan. God is with us in the storm. If we humble ourselves, if America humbles themselves, if America humbles itself, God can do great things with us. If you remember the great call in Chronicles about if God's people will humble themselves and pray, then God will raise them up. Instead of humbling ourselves, we just want to go straight to being great. We just want to go straight to being a great nation. We just want to go straight to being rich. We want to go straight to being comfortable and not having to worry about paying high prices for food or gas. Maybe God is using these trials to humble America and God's people once again, to remind them He is their God, not a politician, not this world, not a political leader, and not some great spiritual leader. So that is the theme of 12 Ordinary Men. It's all about being comfortable with who you are and being obedient to the teachings of God and letting God do what He wants to do with you. Those 12 disciples had no idea what Jesus was going to do through them, or how God was going to use them to form the church and to educate the church over 2,000 years later. If we humble ourselves and watch where God's working in our lives and watch what God's doing, what could He do with us? We can only do so much. Even Jesus said apart from His Father, He can do nothing. We need to let go. It's okay to be ordinary. It's okay that if we don't have the greatest car, it's okay if we don't have the most prestigious job, it's okay if we're not the greatest in the church. Because if we remain humble, God can use us to do great things. And God gets the glory, not us. Do you remember the story of the Apostle Paul? The great Apostle Paul and all his Jewish education. I mean, he's, as he described himself, the Pharisee of the Pharisee. Yet, he never accomplished as much as he did until God humbled him, blinded him, and renamed him as the Apostle Paul. And the Apostle Paul wrote most of the New Testament that we read and cherish today. But first, God had to humble him. So before America becomes great again, maybe God's going to keep humbling us. And nothing humbles us more than facing hard times. Nothing humbles us more than knowing we can do nothing apart from God. That's my sermon. I'm sorry. But if you have not read 12 Ordinary Men, I highly recommend it. Even if you're a woman and if you're looking for inspiration, you want to see how God uses the ordinary to do great things, pick up John MacArthur's 12 Ordinary Men. That's what I have for y'all this month. Do me a favor. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you've already read this book, share your thoughts in the comment section of this video. Y'all have a great weekend, y'all, and I'll be back with another book recommendation next month. Bye-bye.